Hello, my name is Michael Stoller. I'm here for the AmTrust Title webinar series. I'm the host of the Stoller Report, and today's webinar's topic is a very poignant and important topic in today's market: senior and senior housing, resilience in the face of adversity. My guests, they include from Boston, Matthew Whitlock, Managing Director, Chief Investment Officer, Senior Housing at Berkshire Senior Housing. From Chicago, Guy Geller, Chief Operating Officer, CPF Living, President of Grace Management. From Denver, Adam Kaplan, CEO and founder of Solera Senior Partner. And basically from New York, who's operating out of Florida right now, Jan Berman, President of Engel Berman Group and partner at the Bristol Assisted Living. According to the statistics, each and every day there are more seniors becoming in America. There are approximately 47 million seniors living in America. Why do you guys like senior housing? Matt, you recently went to Berkshire. Tell me a little bit about Berkshire and what you're doing there, and what else each one of you is doing. Matt?
Great, thank you. Yes, thank you, Michael. So my career has been full circle, where I started originally in the 1990s in acquisitions and through the public offering of Brookdale, the original Brookdale Living Communities. I then had a short stint as a dedicated lender in the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac world, and then became a broker at CBRE. I have come full circle to get back onto the acquisition side, doing no small part to my feelings about the industry, about the future of the industry, and about the opportunities to invest in the industry. I think you touched on the demographics being really an unbelievably strong argument. I think what I would also add on to that, Michael, is even in the face of this pandemic, our business model is proving out. We are able, as an industry, to really offer a better level of care to very complex healthcare profiles of today's seniors. And I think that in and of itself is a very, very compelling reason, and one of the highest reasons on why I'm bullish on the industry.
Now, has Berkshire gone into the senior housing business before you joined them last year?
Yes. So in 2019, we completed our first equity raise in a dedicated seniors housing fund. It's approximately $235 million, of which approximately 25% has been deployed. Our fund is concentrating on both ground up development and acquisitions. And our business plan with respect to that fund is predicated upon best-in-class operator partnerships. We would like to say we have a full exclusivity with our operating partners, but most of our operating partners have many equity investors and partners. And so what we like to do is concentrate our efforts with our operating partners in specific geographic regions. Other funds within Berkshire have debt and equity capacities as well. So we are able to invest in seniors housing throughout the capital stack, in addition to our dedicated seniors housing fund.
Guy, you're with a private equity firm. Tell me about CPF and Grace Management.
Yeah, CPF Living was launched about 5 to 6 years ago with our first fund. We raised about $221 million of equity. We finished deploying that in last summer, and subsequently raised our second fund of another $225 million of equity. What probably differentiates CPF Living from other private equity funds focused in the senior living space is one of the first acquisitions that we made was a company called Grace Management, which was a long-term industry assisted living management company only, effectively zero kind of equity in the real estate side. The family that launched it wanted to retire, so we bought the company from them. And as a result, we have a kind of a dedicated owner-operator platform in the private equity space, which is a little bit unique and gives us an opportunity to acquire communities and around the country and apply our value-add operations to them along the way.
Adam, you started Solera in 2016. Tell me a little bit about Solera.
So I've been exclusively in senior living my whole career. After a time on both the capital side and operations, I launched my company 4 years ago. We're a fully integrated platform. So we lead with operations. We have management capabilities, development capabilities, as well as investment in assets. We've closed on 9 projects to date. It's included value add acquisitions, which we've done 1, 2 third-party management deals, and the rest have been our development strategy, which we have 6, 4 under construction today, 1 which will open in August. And what I like about the industry is that it's still very young. It's in its infancy, and so what's exciting is that the people that are participating here today are going to be shaping the future, and we've seen it evolve in the last few years. I think we're going to continue to see tremendous innovation in the space in the next coming years. So it's exciting to be a small part of that.
And last but not least, Jan, you've been involved with real estate for close to 40 years. Let's talk about the Bristol and Engel Berman.
So I actually started out, as you know, as an industrial guy, and I used to buy corporate surplus properties and chop them up like sausages. And then in February of 1997, we were the largest owners of industrial properties on Long Island. We sold our portfolio to First Industrial and took OP units. And I had a non-compete for industrial buildings on Long Island. So I started buying properties in Montreal and Miami and Bedford, Massachusetts. And locally, I teamed up with Sidney Engel, which is where Engel Berman came from, and Steve Krieger, to buy a piece of land in East Meadow. I just finished a 438 unit, 55 and older community. My first housing job, but it was zoned for an office building at the time, and office buildings weren't really in favor. So I had never done anything like this before, but 55 and older housing, it was very successful. So we bought this land together, and we built a 280 bed SNF. We were the landlord for a tenant. We built 100 units of condominiums, and we had extra land, and I had the idea of doing assisted living. So then I got on a plane and flew around the country, and we saw a model that Marriott was doing in Maryland. We copied it, filled the building up in 4 months, and built 1 a year for 5 years. And then out of the blue, got an unsolicited offer to sell the original 5 for about $250 million, which was a lot more than we thought it was worth. So we went out to 8 potential buyers, and we sold the package for about $325 million to a joint venture of Chartwell Senior Housing and an ING fund. And we kept the management. We had a non-compete for Long Island. So we had a bit of a buyer's remorse. We were doing a lot of housing jobs back then, and we were selling a lot of sites to Pulte. But we went ahead and we started building in New Jersey and Westchester, because we couldn't build on Long Island for 4 years. And after 5 years, they wanted to sell. So we bought the original 5 places back. And we now have 21 operating properties and a half a dozen that we're constructing. Long Island, New Jersey, Westchester, and New York City. And we feel that we pretty much are done with this area with the exception of a few more in New York City, and now we're looking in South Florida. So we really are cradle to grave. We find the property, we zone the property, we have our own construction business with about 90 people. We do about $1 billion a year of construction between multifamily and Bristol's and other things that we're doing. Wellbridge, the addiction business, we're going into some other businesses. We have our own management company with about 60 people that do all the management of the assisted living. We have a separate management company for other properties. And we're currently in contract for 4 sites in Southeast Florida, and that'll probably be our next main area of expansion. We're also building about 1,000 units of rental housing on Long Island right now for 55 and older communities. So we're doing a lot of multifamily rentals now too.
With regard to that, with a question for all of you, there are different levels of the stack, as one would say. There's independent living, assisted living, memory care, specialized care. Where do you think are the best opportunities in the future, in 2020, in the next 10 years, with the aging population? As I say, the silver Tunisia.
You got to say all the above. A lot of it's need driven. So the assisted living and the memory care, they come kicking and screaming, but they have to come. And a lot of people want to know where they're going to be, so they move in a bit younger. But with the number of people that are aging out, we all have amazing opportunities across the spectrum.
Adam, Adam, and then Guy, where do you see the opportunities?
The only thing I would add would be it depends. And the reason why I say that, it's a very local business. So really you got to analyze this on a 5-10 mile radius. You know, in one market, it could be really compelling to weight heavily towards independent living. On another, it could be more compelling to offer all three levels of services: independent, assisted, and memory care. And in another market, you might find, you know, the independent living is oversaturated, and you know, the assisted living and memory care is a more compelling you know, opportunity. So we look at everything on a localized basis. There's a lot of great reporting out there right now with Nick Map and some of the other benchmarking tools, Vision LTC that have come out. And so you could be a lot more of a sharpshooter today than you could in the past. So look at it on a localized basis and figure out where the most compelling opportunities lie.
I think that Jan and Adam are building, and so will Matt, are building ground up. Guy, you've been buying existing property. Why have you been buying existing properties?
Well, so I believe everything that Jan and Adam said is absolutely true, especially in the near term. With the existing products that are available on the marketplace, you can find opportunities based on demand and supply that are currently being met, as well as, you know, from a pure cost perspective, to answer your question, we find that it can still be very compelling to buy at a discounted per unit price of an existing asset, and to spend a significant amount of money refurbishing and repurposing that community to be more suitable for today's marketplace, and still come in under per unit values of what a new construction would take as well. So, and it's a faster way to market for us at that time. So for instance, in the case of an independent living community, we find that a lot of times there's an opportunity to convert units to a higher level of care based on kind of the needs in the market that are or are not being met. In the case of a couple communities where we've had additional land, we've built bolt-on memory care or assisted living buildings to existing independent living buildings, so we provide more of a continuum of opportunity of care for those seniors. But to get to your original question, I think, you know, right now we are definitely seeing the need-driven market, especially with this COVID-19 situation happening right now, where assisted living and memory care is still being driven forward because of need. As we get into the next kind of wave of demographics of kind of the more baby boomer astute buyer, I do believe that independent living is going to have to evolve its product and innovate to become more appealing to that group, so that it isn't starting to mimic just another form of assisted living in a slightly different environment. And that's something that's exciting, and I think it will come. And I think there's great people doing really interesting projects right now that will become a lot different. It'll look and feel very different than what the products that you see today.
So what are you, I know Adam has been speaking around the country about the topics of urban assisted living, independent living, memory care. What do you see different over the next couple of years for all of you? You know, there was at the beginning of the 21st century, you know, we had a circumstance where people were saying that there was an assisted living type of with the Altria and Sunrise. Where do you see the business today evolving? What are the changes that you see for assisted living, independent living, memory care going for the next 10, 15 years?
So I would take a shot at that. I think everything that the other panelists have said is entirely accurate. And what I would also add on that is there's the old line from the movie, "If you build it, they will come," and that's entirely untrue in seniors housing. This is an evolution and to Adam's point earlier, we're at the very beginning of the evolution of this. And what we're facing in terms of who our retail prospect or our retail consumer is we're now bumping up against a post-World War II resident as opposed to a pre-World War II resident. And that's incredibly important, not only from an architectural perspective, but an acuity level, a programming level, and healthcare profile level. So for example, my father was born in 1919. When he moved into assisted living a few years ago, he was concerned with having 3 warm meals and a warm cot. And my mother is 16 years younger than my father, and she wanted a heck of a lot more than Dad did. She wasn't concerned with the cot or the warm meals. She wanted activities and not just bingo. She wanted to be able to interact with the other residents in the community. She wanted to travel to museums, to restaurants. And so I think the process of evolution is well underway. But we need to evolve as an industry, not just from an architecture perspective, but from a programming perspective and the types of care that we offer so that we're best able to satisfy the needs of our consumer. And those needs are changing daily.
So I have a question. If you have two different age groups as a husband and wife, how do you put them in a room and how do you change your programs? And Guy, you're in the management business. Adam, you're in the management business. And Jan, how do you deal with the changing of the age? And hypothetically, one of the people may be in memory care and one is just in assisted living.
Yeah, so that goes back to a different question that you asked as well, which is kind of the evolution of the product. And I think it comes down to choice and optionality. And, you know, the traditional senior living community has a singular dining room where that's where you eat effectively 3 meals a day, 365 days a year. I see the evolution kind of mimicking a little bit more of the hospitality industry with a lot more options in terms of dining, you know, where you can eat multiple different venues at different days, a lot of different activities and different grades of activities, from everything from those that require some assistance and some potential care to support to effectively just a normal, you know, kind of program of opportunities to get outside and do different things. So I think it's a combination of both creating a physical plant that's got different areas and different means of providing different venues and programming that suits it. But I will say this is that in the future, we've got to blend this world of hospitality services and healthcare in a more kind of meaningful way where the healthcare sits behind and runs almost like a machine consistently. And the hospitality is what we're really offering to the clientele as a reason to come to us.
But Michael, from our point of view, we're seeing people coming in older and more frail. We're becoming a wealthy person's nursing home. To a large extent, that's what assisted memory care is becoming. You know, you don't get younger people here. And if you have the mix of one in memory care and one not, you're almost better off because it's two separate programs completely. But we're preparing for people to stay longer, and the way we keep them longer is by offering more and more services that you see more in a nursing home. You know, different types of lifts and different types of food options where if they can't eat solid foods, and, you know, advanced licenses where we can keep people longer. Because the key for us is, you know, we lose 2.5% of our population every month. So the key to us is to keep them as long as possible. So you want to give them the ability to stay once they're there. Because instead of turning every 3 years, it's every 2 years, that's pretty kind of horrible as far as the constant in and out.
You know, assisted living 2020, you know, has a relationship now with medical institutions. Adam, you're planning one of your institutions dealing with a healthcare institution, I think Cleveland Clinic you mentioned. Jan, you're involved with Northwell Health. Why don't we talk about what you're doing with the healthcare systems today? Jan?
Well, what we did with Northwell was when we built the Lake Success property, it's literally a quarter of a mile from the Feinstein Institute and Northwell's main campus. And they had a world-renowned researcher in dementia there named Dr. Peter Davies. So we put together a suite of offices and examination areas for them. And it was the first time they had ever done research with an existing community of people. So they do research several days a week with our population. And they're working on all kinds of things from weightlifting to nutrition to ballroom dancing. And it's amazing to watch a 90-pound woman deadlifting 90 pounds, you know, and they're trying novel approaches to try to slow down the onset of dementia. And they've come up with some interesting things.
Now, Adam.
Yeah, there's different ways we're approaching this. What I would say is that historically in the industry, the hospitals, they want to keep you out of their doors. I think now the progressive ones are a lot smarter. They see that senior living is a part of the continuum. They want to improve outcomes. There's a move away from value-based towards value-based care. And so if you can provide high quality care in a lower cost setting, you're going to be successful in this next movement in healthcare. So we're, even in buildings where we don't have formal relationships, we're trying to work with local healthcare systems. We're seeing a lot more success with that and trying to provide greater care coordination services, so that we're not just discharging somebody out to the hospital like we used to. We're trying to triage that situation, work with preferred providers, provide the highest quality care, lower cost settings, therefore improving outcomes. So there are informal relationships, which I'm a big believer in, which we're doing, in all of our markets. And then there's the more formal relationships like we're doing in Las Vegas, where we're actually getting counsel from experts that's rooted in research. And it really helps guide, especially like with dementia care, more research-driven design decisions versus operators. We tend to base our decision off of, efficiencies, off of marketability. So it's kind of a really good marriage between the operator mindset and then more of the academic institutions.
Let's discuss the dementia, the Alzheimer's, and the memory care. Jane, you said you're building a place in New York City today, which is specifically geared to memory care. Adam, I believe the place in Las Vegas is all memory care. Why are you pushing so much on the memory care? And what's the difference in the cost per month for a customer who's in a memory care versus a regular assisted living?
We did the York Avenue as a memory care because we couldn't fit a full Bristol. So it really had to do with the size of the property and the yield we could get on the property. So the demand showed that we could fill the beds with just memory care, and it would have been not enough of any category to suit our needs. We would love to do a full Bristol like we're doing on the west side, and we'll find sites for that. So we will do more in the city. But you definitely get more money, but you definitely provide more care. So the staffing ratio is completely different. The level of service you provide are different, and you're compensated for it. But the other side of that is everything is included, where typically in assisted living, we get levels of care and we get paid for extra items. So that can build up too when people get more frail and elderly. So it's more of an all-inclusive package at a set price.
Our preference is to build continuum. So if you look at our overall development portfolio, we have 6 assets, 5 of which are either assisted living and memory care or independent living, assisted living and memory care. And those weight heavily towards either independent living or assisted living and independent living. We have one project which is unique, which is standalone memory care, and it's due to the partnership with the local healthcare system. And the adjacency to a brain research foundation, brain research center. So there are unique circumstances I mentioned earlier that are very local that could drive an alternative strategy. But you got to be very careful on standalone memory care. I'll tell you what, on paper, it might look attractive when you're getting, $6,500 a month all-inclusive rents, but it can prove to be more challenging. And so typically our preference is to weight towards a continuum where the independent and assisted do feed the memory care.
I do think actually Adam touched upon something that's really important in terms of, why standalone memory care versus the other products. I personally own a business with my father in central London where we do standalone memory care. And the reason why we do that is kind of twofold. One, we certainly saw a massively underserved market there, significantly underserved market. But the second piece is that sometimes with the assisted living, Jan's right, it's heading much more down to looking like a nursing environment than it would be 20 years ago. That providing that level of clinical care can be challenging and expensive as well. But it can be done, something that can be done at home with home care, versus the challenge behaviors that you see in memory care make it more challenging for anybody to stay at home or live with family members or anything else like that. So an environment where it's specifically suited to deal with memory care issues tends to create a significantly more positive outcomes for those residents. So, I feel like there's long-term value in memory care as a product. But to Adam's point, we see a lot more benefit in having a continuum. And in fact, in a lot of cases, because independent living has somewhat geared itself towards assisted living these days, we're almost skipping the assisted living component of that continuum. So we have a community with 230 apartments of independent living, and we did not build an assisted living. We built a 30-unit memory care adjacent to it. And so all we have is independent living and memory care, and that continuum works quite well for us. I don't know if that would work in all circumstances. I think everything is unique to what the market is offering, but we've found that there can be a benefit to that too.
What about the subject, a number of people expect hotels to be closing due to the pandemic, the repositioning of hotels and the repositioning of, let's say, shopping centers or parts of shopping centers to assisted living, independent living, and memory care. Where do you see that as an opportunity? Matt?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I'm asked that quite a bit, and I would offer a couple of different things. I think to the positive, you take a mall that has been shut down, and that mall was developed with, generally speaking, with public transportation to that location. From a cultural and societal perspective, that location is very well known. There are ample utilities, including power and sewer. There's plenty of parking. The product has been developed and is being redeveloped, so it could be seen as a positive for the community. And so we are looking at mall redevelopment opportunities as they come across our desk. The hotel repositioning is slightly different. And before I give you these comments, I always offer this kind of analogy. It's a lot easier to bring a brand new 2x4 to a field than it is to bring it up the flight of stairs of a hotel. So the hotel itself, from a repositioning perspective, probably has significant locational characteristics and amenities, because that's why you want someone to come stay with you, is where your location is. However, the renovation costs of a repositioning of an existing hotel can sometimes outweigh the benefit of re-tenanting it as seniors housing. And one of the things that we are constantly mindful of, and it sort of ties back into our original conversation about the evolution of our product, is most hotels lack the common area space or the ability to develop common area space in a setting that is conducive to a residential congregate living environment. Some hotels do have the capacity from a hotel and banquet perspective to offer dining rooms, but we will look at each one of those opportunities on an individual basis, but there are some challenges to redeveloping both of those.
Anyone else? Adam?
We've taken a shot at them, and we just can never get there. The cost to repurpose it ultimately puts us at a high basis where it would justify building ground up and having something that was purpose built and the way that Jan or Guy or Matt or I would have intended it. Probably the only exception would be ultra high barrier to entry sites like a New York City or an LA, London, really infill. Those would be the exceptions to the rule where you would actually pursue it. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of limitations. You're going to be at a really high basis, and you're going to be unhappy.
We're looking in New York City to find hotels that we can convert, because, as you said, barrier to entry is so tough in New York City. So for us, because we're there already and we have a team of people that can do the construction as well as the management, we would love to find those possibilities. And it has to be a full service hotel, as Matt said. You're not taking a hotel without many services and having the appropriate space. But the older hotels, which had tons of common area, really in the right situation, and when they pay $1 million a unit for land just to build in New York City just for the dirt, you can do pretty well with a hotel on a conversion if you could buy it at numbers that we hope to see in the next 6 months.
All of you have been quoted in articles and speeches with regard to luxury amenities available that you can provide. One of the topics is chefs. I think, Adam, was written that you've been looking for a top chef or local restaurateur in Denver over there. How important today is it to have the top chef, the additional amenities, the programs that people are to attract, and that people will go to your places as opposed to someone else?
I could start that off, which is that we focus our development strategy on high barrier to entry locations. We don't try to be everything to everybody. So we're not in tertiary markets. We're not in markets that are heavily commoditized. We like to go after markets where it's already proven that people will pay a premium price for a premium product. There are people who have discerning taste. They're members of country clubs. They travel the world, and so their expectations are high, and they're not going to change those expectations, or the kids aren't going to change those expectations when they decide to move into senior living. So when I started the company, the mantra was, we're going to build places where people actually want to live. That was really important, because I had heard executives in this industry, the pioneers, say, yeah, well, but for me, I would never move into one of our properties. That turns my stomach. I mean, it was important to me that it was either a place I would ultimately aspire to live, or somewhere where I'd want a loved one to live. And I think the design, the amenity packages, the quality of the services are really important to provide that elevated level of service. The mistake that people make is they try to do that now in markets that are more middle market. They try to do that in markets that are tertiary. You know, I mean, if Four Seasons went and they put, you know, a Four Seasons product in a tertiary market where you had incomes of 35,000 and home values of 75,000, they would perform terribly. They know their demographics. You know, people on this call, they know their demographics. That we focus on what we focus on, and we know we got to really deliver in terms of our amenities and our services package.
So where do you see the opportunities in the future, and what kind of returns can an investor see for investment in senior housing, senior living, assisted living, and memory care? Jan?
Well, look, we try to build to an 8 or 9% cash on cash returns, so pre-leverage, so that works out great for us. The next market for us is South Florida, primarily because that's where we all want to live. So, you know, it's Scott, David, and I, and Steven, so, and John. So the attitude we have is both Scott and David and I, all three of us are in Jupiter and Palm Beach Gardens. Steven just bought a home in Palm Beach. So there's no question we want to spend more time here. So we're going to be actively building here. New York's getting tougher and tougher. You know, the governor is with its prevailing wage rules now, and the new legislator in Albany, where they're trying to rent control everything, and it's becoming less and less friendly to people like us. So we had to make a decision. We also pretty much own our markets. So at some point, all we're doing is stealing from our next place. So it's an emotional move for us, but it's also, there's a good recognition because a ton of people from our markets go back and forth to Florida and will eventually be living in Florida. So, but that's our next move, and it's going to be assisted living, it's going to be memory care, and it's also going to be 55 and older housing because we do a ton of that. And for now, that's what we're looking at.
Guy?
Yeah, from my perspective, I think the opportunities are vast, and there's a wide array of those opportunities just based on markets and needs. I wouldn't be aligned to any particular geography or product type. But I will say this, is that the returns that we see in senior living should be at a higher rate than what you get in the other classes, some of the other classes of real estate, just due to the fact that there's the operating risk that goes along with it. And that starts to, when you talk about the future of the industry, I think what you will see is a continued, and Matt has said this in the past, a continued diversification between best-in-class operator and the rest. And that is going to be kind of drive the future of the industry. But no matter what, senior living should return at a higher yield than your other classes of real estate in those same markets. Maybe hotels would be something that you would kind of align it to from a yield perspective, but certainly compared to retail, office, industrial, it should ring at a higher rate.
With people would ask me and ask all of you today, due to the pandemic, what are your occupancies today?
Yeah, so I'll answer that first. I will tell you, April was not a great month for us. We lost a full percentage point in occupancy. We have about 6,500 residents. We lost about a percentage point, but May we're projected to gain that percentage point back. So I think what we saw was effectively everybody sitting on the sidelines in April. Our leads are down significantly, but our conversion rate in May is significantly higher. I think there's been almost a rebound due to a demand. I will tell you that, and I think everybody on this call would recognize this, Our independent living is slightly slower to rebound at this point, but we are getting the need-driven move-ins through assisted living and memory care.
Jan and Adam.
So in our case, we're really in the center of the storm, Nassau and Suffolk County, New York City, northern New Jersey. So we have not been allowed to take anybody new for a couple of months. So we're down, we're down on our occupancies, but there also are certain people that might have moved out that stayed because, some of the turnover we might have gotten, they didn't go home or they didn't go to someplace else. So they stayed in our communities because they didn't want to start over. We are hopeful that the governor will open the state soon, and we're hopeful we'll start to pick up. We're doing as best as we can with online marketing, but it's not the same thing as giving someone really a tour and exploring where they're going. We think that it's going to be a lousy second quarter, a better third quarter, and we hope that by the end of the year we get to stabilization. What we don't know, nobody knows, is will the pandemic come back with a vengeance in the fall? We hope it won't. What we don't know is that when you open the states, if your workers are going out to dinner and going out to places and seeing their family, will they bring it back into the community? So we have to be very careful about how we safeguard those people. So we're right now in the process of what technology should we be installing at the front door. So when you walk in the front door, you feel good. And that may be purple lights or blue lights, and it may be spraying stuff on people's shoes, and it may be, special sensors for taking people's temperatures. But we're all going to have to go out of our way to market the concept that mom and dad are safer with us than they would be at home, and that their needs are best met in a community like we have. So we're right now focusing on what the right technology is, and it has to be right there the second you walk in the door, so you can't miss it. And it'll be in the elevators, and it'll be in the kitchens and dining rooms, and you'll be spraying stuff on the walls that keeps the virus from growing for 48 hours, and you'll do it every day. And those are all the kinds of things that we think will hopefully give people the feeling that they really are safer. And if you can't do that, and this doesn't, slow down, and the vaccine that they touted yesterday doesn't come to fruition, it's going to be hard for us. So we have to make sure that people feel safer with us than at home.
Or for people who are in the middle of building new hotels or renovating, Guy, in your properties over there, what are you doing today to change the property? Are you putting out ultraviolet lighting? Are you changing the structure, that the way you were planning to build the building for different ways for the dining rooms, the kitchens, and so on? Adam, Guy?
So I'll just start from our existing buildings perspective. What we're trying to look, there's only so much that you can do with an existing structure. So I do think that Adam and Jan and Matt have a slight advantage for being able to potentially shift some of their developments around to customize for kind of going forward in the pandemic. But I will say this, that we are looking to add telehealth rooms to a vast majority of our communities, because we do find that is something that should be a trend going forward. We are looking at reception areas that are separate from the main areas, so that there is an opportunity to take temperatures, to address potential clothing or PPE or anything along those lines. And then from going forward, I think that to the points before, technology is a key factor for this. We are looking at wearables now that we felt like weren't ready for market a year ago, but we're working with companies that now see an increased demand to get it into the hands of the senior living market, where it can gauge statistics and vitals of each of our residents, as well as do contact tracing if there is an outbreak, and having our residents and associates wearing those continuously. And that type of technology, we think, has an opportunity to at least alleviate some concerns. But I will say this, and I think this is a fundamental point that I wanted to get across this panel. The last 2 months, the increased communication that we've received from family members and residents has been astronomical, not only in the volume. I mean, we're getting tens of hundreds of letters a day from residents and family members. And I can't think of one of them that has not been overwhelmingly supportive of what we're doing. And in large part because of the socialization that we're able to offer, the preparation, the professionalism of providing that sort of environment that is clean, it's safe, it's infection-free as much as we can, and to continue to provide meals and services and and other types of opportunities for people to actually get out and be part of a society in senior living has just been, it's been really breathtaking to us, because it's a stark contrast to what we're hearing in the media, with the public perception being quite negative due to potentially nursing home issues or other things like that. I will tell you that we have more referrals from family members and residents and friends than we've ever had in the last 2 months. And I think that, to me, is the best testimony that we have.
To operate your facilities, one of the biggest headaches that everybody has today is hiring quality help. How difficult is it finding help, in all different levels, from the chef to the front door to the back door to the cleaning people?
I'll start with this, which is that we're finding this is a great time to capitalize in terms of hiring management staff and any corporate staff, because you can actually attract really talented people from outside of the space. We've already brought 2 people in from the hotel industry, 1 person in sales and 1 in HR. Both are exceptional talents that were really committed to their field, but looked at alternatives due to what's going on and the slowdown in restaurants and hotels. So this is a great industry. I think anyone would attest to the fact that it might be hard for somebody who's not been in the industry to kind of grasp a career change and move into what they probably perceive as a nursing home or a clinical setting. But what we would all find is that once people do make the change, they never look back. And if you're a star performer in restaurants or hotels, this is an industry where you can really you can pave your own way. There's a lot more opportunities for advancement to influence the future of the industry, as I was mentioning earlier. So from a management perspective, best time probably in my career that I've seen to recruit good talent.
Guy?
But on the other side of the equation,
Michael, from where I sit, and we have semi-exclusive relationships with our operators, this short-term distress that our industry is experiencing is really giving us a tremendous opportunity to observe not only our current operating partners, but our would-be operating partners for what their best practices are. And I can tell you unequivocally that the protocols that are put in place by the operators, by the attitudes that the operators are taking, it is determining not just the success of the individual property, but the long-term success of the operator, not just from a profit and loss perspective, but by a perception of the consumer within an individual micro market outlook. We see best-in-class protocols producing the best-in-class community in which people want to live in. And I think that this short-term distress, while it will pass, it's putting tremendous burden on operations right now. To Adam's point, I think the industry is experiencing an opportunity to attract best-in-class operators or operating talent, and the best-in-class operators are seeking that talent. So I look at this opportunity as an opportunity for our operating partners to upgrade their employees and upgrade their management, and through the providing of best-in-class protocols and to Guy's point, exploring technology as a means of defense. Whether that be wearables that provide individual data on individual residents and or visitors, or whether it's the involvement of telehealth and virtual reality into normal day-to-day operating systems. I really think you're going to see the wheat separating from the chaff going forward, and that best-in-class operators are seizing this moment to improve their day-to-day operations.
One thing I'd like to add is what we found is we spent the last couple of years trying to build a true corporate culture or a company culture, and really trying to hire our key managers, our executive directors and wellness directors that kind of emulate that culture. And it's taken us a lot of time. We've had to weed out a lot of people along the way, but that effort, I think, is fruiting itself today, because our turnover is significantly lower. People want to show up to work. They believe in what we're doing. They believe in trying to help and be part of the solution for this pandemic. And so we've been actually blessed that we've had extremely high or very low turnover, and everybody's showing up to work ready to go. I think part of it is also that we're very forward in going out and buying a lot of PPE as much as we could. right out of the gate. And so we're kind of fully stocked and everybody feels safe showing up to work. And that is a big part of what we are and who we are, is we're going to take care of our associates as much as we're going to take care of our residents. I think that's starting to differentiate itself right now.
Jan?
The harder thing is the lower paid staff, to get them that want to come to work, and we do have a good cadre of people, but that's our biggest challenge, is finding the lower paid help that want to come in because they have other options. And when you have minimum wage or slightly their higher wage people, it's hard when you need thousands of them. So that's our biggest challenge on the help side.
I think in summation, I found a quote which I think is very relative to the topic today. You're in a recession-resistant sector, and it is a sector that's going to only grow and grow, especially in light of the pandemic, coupled with the fact that the aging seniors and the aging number of people needing memory care. I'd like to thank Jan Berman, Matt Whitlock, Guy Geller, Adam Kaplan, Steve Napolitano of AmTrust Title, and this is Mike Stoller of the Stoller Report, and we'll see you later on for the next webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Appreciate it.